Hello, welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome. I have such a good video today. It is one that I have been looking forward to all year, and it is my best books of 2025. For me, a best book is one that really stayed with me throughout the year, that I could not stop thinking about, and that I found myself recommending time and time again. I read from a lot of different genres this year, so I thought it would be fun if we did this by category, so we could kind of have our own little book awards. I have all of the books, so let's get started. First, we're gonna do literary fiction. This was a category that I haven't always read as much of in years past, but I really found myself drawn to it more this year. I am loving books with a little bit more depth and that make me feel a bit of emotion, and I have definitely found that in this genre. And this book was one of my favorites of the year, and I think that I found one of my new favorite authors through it, and it is Heart the Lover by Lily King. It was short, but it will make you feel very deeply. It is about, oh gosh, it's so hard to describe what it's about. It's a literary fiction novel, and I would say there's definitely a romance subplot in it. It is broken into 3 parts instead of chapters, so each part is a different phase of the main character's life. Part 1 starts in college. There is a little bit of a love triangle that happens there. It's really about the choices that we make when we're younger and how those shape us and stay with us through the rest of our life. And I would say it's a unique take on the one that got away. I think what Lily King does really well is writes very human characters with very real flaws. You might be finding yourself being like, why did you do that? Or, you know, like they should have done this differently. But then when I think about it, I'm like, no, they're behaving how a real human would behave. Like humans aren't perfect. And I think a lot of times in romantasy, you'll get these more, you know, perfect men that are depicted, but in this book they just felt very human, probably because they're also human and not like a fairy or something. I did cry at the pool while reading this, so be careful about where you read it. It's just really moving, and I don't always remember characters from books after I've read it, which is something that I want to work on in 2026, but these characters have stayed with me. Quotes have stayed with me. One of the quotes at the end that references the next big bang, that one literally will bring me to tears if I think about it. I highlighted so many quotes in here. The prose is really, really beautiful. Even the first sentence, it says, "You knew I'd write a book about you someday." I feel like it just pulled me in from the beginning. I definitely could have read this in one sitting if I wanted to, but I was reading it for book club, and so I didn't want to finish it in a day, but you easily could. It is very easy to read. There is romance in it, like I said, but it also touches on friendship and loss, and I think just reflecting on our life's choices as we grow older was a really big theme in this one. And the writing feels like you're kind of reading from her personal diary, I thought, which I really enjoyed. So if you want to feel something, if you're saying, I haven't felt anything in forever, this will make you feel something. For fantasy, we have another one of my favorite books of the year. This is definitely up there with Heart the Lover for my top books of 2025, genre not included. And it was a long one, The Raven Scholar. This book was over 600 pages and it never felt long, dull, or boring. I was already ready to start book 2 when I finished book 1. It was an epic fantasy, very unique. If you feel like all fantasy books are doing the same thing lately, you will not feel that way when you read this book. The premise is basically like there needs to be a new ruler in this world. There's different houses that are represented by different animals, the raven being the house of the scholars. Each of the houses has a contender that is going to fight for the crown, and the night before the games are set to take place, one of the contenders is murdered. So it was great because not only is there the question of who is going to be the next ruler and how are these games going to play out, you're also wondering why did this murder happen and who was responsible for it. And there's a very small romance subplot. It is not overpowering compared to the rest of the story. I thought it was really well done. There's a lot of political intrigue too. It was just a top-notch book. I could not get enough of it. The world building was very immersive. Everything was really cleverly plotted. I feel like no detail was missed. The main character is very eccentric, which I thought was fun to follow. She was definitely not someone that I had read about, and the narration style is also very different. It's very hard for me to explain what the narration style even was, but it's from the perspective of the raven, which is one of the gods, and we'll just leave it at it's very unique. You should read it. It did take a little bit of getting used to, though. The ending of this is also very good. I feel like some of the series that I've read this year, the ending has left me wanting a little bit more. This did not. It was perfectly executed and just has me wanting book 2. For romance, I have a book that I know was a little bit controversial this year, but I personally loved it. I thought it had a little bit more depth than other romances that I've read recently. We have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I love Emily Henry. I love her writing style. Romance is not always a genre that I love, but I have always enjoyed hers. So when I heard that Emily Henry is doing something a little bit different with her latest novel, I was intrigued, and it really worked for me. I thought the romance was still there, the witty banter that Emily Henry is known for. I don't always love the grumpy sunshine romance trope. It did have that, but I didn't find it to be annoying. It was definitely still a cute romance, but I really loved the addition of Margaret. So for the storyline, there's 2 journalists, Alice and Hayden, and they both find themselves on Little Crescent Island, and they are basically competing to see who gets to write the biography of a former Hollywood, I'll call her socialite. Her family was very famous, one of the most well-known families over the years. She was a socialite who had some scandals happen. She was always being written about in the papers, a very glamorous lifestyle filled with a lot of tabloid gossip. She hasn't been seen in years until these 2 find her and start the competition for who's going to write her biography. But while they're meeting with Margaret to start writing their pieces, they realize she might not be telling them the same story, but there is an ironclad NDA, so they can't really compare notes and figure out what is really going on. So not only do you have the romance and then the old Hollywood glamour with Margaret and the dual timelines, hearing about Margaret's life and then present day, you also have a little bit of a mystery going on in the plot. It's definitely not like a thriller, no massive twist or anything, but there is a part of you that's oh, I need to keep reading because I want to find out how this resolves itself. So I loved having all of those themes woven together into one book. It kept me very interested, but still gave me that romance aspect that I was looking for. And of course, I just love Emily Henry. I always look forward to when she releases a new book. I could have also called this category the most bingeable book of the year, but I did label it as romantasy. It is both, and for it we have Conform by Ariel Sullivan. I initially grabbed this book because one of the quotes from the advance praise on the back was from Sarah J. Maas, and I love her books, so thought if she was giving her approval of this book, I needed to check it out. It was so fast-paced and addictive. I found myself always wanting to pick it up and needing to know what happened next. It is a dystopian romantasy, and it's set in a time in the future where society has had to rebuild itself after a big war happens. There's different classes in this society. There are the elites who live up in the clouds, and then there are minor defects who live on the ground and major defects who live underground. Your defect is really just something that would be a genetic predisposition that the alum have decided is now going to make the perfect population. Everything that you're required to do, it needs to conform and be for the greater good. One of those things is mating, and so I think that's why this gets compared to The Handmaid's Tale a lot, because women in this book are really treated as not people, but as things that are going to help populate the world with the perfect elite species. Like any good romantasy, there is I would say she's a strong female character. There is a female character that is starting to kind of get caught up in a rebellion against this, while also having a love triangle going on. So Emmeline is the main character, and I really loved her job in this because it pulled in the importance of artwork as well. And in this new society, the elites really don't want people to feel anything, and art has meaning and gives people feelings. So one of Emmeline's jobs is to go through, help tag if the art is going to be kept or not. And she really starts questioning, why am I doing this and why don't they want to keep this? She is in a phase in her life where she can be selected for her mating period, and she gets selected by one of the head alums. So she has to spend some of her time living in the clouds. So you're following that journey where she's going through this mating process. While that's happening, there is a different man who appears at her job, and then I don't want to give too many things away. A love triangle starts happening and a rebellion starts forming, and there is a lot of drama. It's very intense. I do know some people critiqued this from the dystopian standpoint as maybe not covering some of the themes as well as it could have. I thought that this was very entertaining. I don't think that it is the next Handmaid's Tale by any means, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. The next book, I believe, comes out on March something in March, and it's actually called Beneath, book number 0. So I think that one's gonna give us a lot more information about how this world was started and what led to it being created, which was another critique of the book, is that the world building was really easy to understand. It was a dystopian that's easy to understand, but maybe it wasn't detailed enough. And so I think book number 0 might be giving us what some of us were looking for in this book. So I can't wait for that one. I stand by liking this one, and if you're looking for something to get you out of a reading slump, check this one out. Next up, we have historical fiction. This is a genre that I used to find boring, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that because there is nothing boring about historical fiction. It's actually one of my favorite genres lately because I have found that I can learn so much and really gain more empathy and understanding for past things that have happened in our history while also being entertained, and that is like the best of both worlds. I love a well-researched historical fiction. I think this one was the perfect blend of how did I learn so much while also loving the story so much. It is Lady Tan's Circle of Women by Lisa C. I had never read a book by this author before, but I added a lot of hers to my list after finishing this one. I love that this really focused on the strong bonds that we form with women and women supporting women. I also really enjoyed learning about traditional Chinese medicine. That's something I'm interested in my personal life, and that is a big focus of this book. It follows the main character who's born into a really wealthy family in the 15th century during the Ming Dynasty in China. Through a series of circumstances, she ends up being raised by her grandparents, who are both physicians, and her grandma is one of the only female physicians in China at that time. And this is based on a true story, by the way. So the main character really trains and learns a lot from her grandparents while she's living with them, and then forms a really close friendship with one of the midwife's daughters. And at this time in society, because midwives were exposed to blood, they were not a profession that was, they were basically considered a lower class, but the two girls are allowed to be friends and they have a really close friendship. But it comes time for the main character to leave her grandparents, and she had an arranged marriage, so she has to go to their estate. While she's there, she's expected to be a proper wife. There was also a really big theme of, I don't know if theme's the right word here, but this book also heavily talked about foot bindings and that process, and I found that very fascinating because I don't think I fully understood what women went through with that process, and how risky it was, and that was just a really insane thing to learn about. When she goes to live with her husband's family and she's expected to be a proper wife, she has to embroider and recite poetry. She's banned from practicing medicine and also banned from seeing her close friend. So you follow that journey, and through another series of events, she is able, well, now I feel like I'm gonna start spoiling the book, but she does get to see her friend again. They go go on more journeys together. She really becomes a very strong, empowered female through this whole process. It is because of the women in her life that she's able to evolve and grow in the way that she does. And it covers really serious and sometimes intense topics without ever feeling too heavy. And I walked away with such an appreciation for women, also just so much more knowledge. This book I read, I think it was the first book that I read in January of 2025 last year, and it is one of the ones that has definitely stayed with me the longest. I would recommend this to everyone. I truly loved it. I loved reading the notes at the back, the author's notes about the research that she did for the book and what inspired the book. Definitely pick this up. You will feel so empowered after. And now we have the best debut that I read last year, and I was also going to call this the best science fiction book that I read last year, but it blended so many genres, I had trouble putting it into a category, which is how we ended up with debut, and it is The Book of Lost Hours. This was incredible. It had so many of my favorite things in one book because it had historical fiction, romance, magical realism, time travel. It had dual timelines. I loved the characters. They were perfectly flawed. They grew during the book. I don't know where to start with this one. I feel like time travel books can be a little bit confusing to explain because you spend the first part of time travel books trying to figure out what is going on. We start with raids that were occurring in Germany, and the main character is named Lisavette, and to keep her safe, her father places her in the time space, which he has access to from special watches, which were typically passed down from father to son in these watchmaking families. So she's placed into the time space. He never comes back for her. So she ends up trapped there. And the time space is where memories basically go to live once someone has died. There's a few specters in there that haven't moved on yet. There's just books filled with everyone's memories. So she grows up among memories with a specter friend, basically, and he was a really amazing sub-character. So all of her human experience is her jumping into books and observing what other people have gone through. And then as she ages, there starts to be government employees that come into the time space and start destroying memories. And so one of the themes of this book was about who decides what becomes history and what are the stories that we tell ourselves. And I thought that was a really interesting theme that was woven into this entertainment book. So the government employees are coming in, destroying memories, and she says, this isn't right, I'm gonna save these memories. They would light fire to a book and she would save the scraps and keep them in her own book. And during this, she meets an American employee named Ernest. They form a relationship. And then you jump to a different timeline where we're meeting Ernest's niece, and she is grieving the loss of him, and a mysterious CIA agent shows up, and his niece Amelia basically has to enter the time space, and from there you start to see how these timelines and stories are intertwined, and it was so much fun to read, so beautifully written, covered really important topics, and overall I thought it was really easy to understand for a book that was touching on time travel and history and dual timelines. I would just recommend this to everyone because it has so many different genres. I think a lot of people would like this, and I cannot wait to see what this author writes next. And now we have magical realism, and if you can't tell, I love a book that has a little bit of magic or time travel. And for this one, we have a book that really surprised me, but in the best way. It is The Other Side of Now. I was not expecting something that would make me both laugh and cry when I started this book. It seemed really light when I first started it because as it begins, you are following her stage name is Lana, real name Meg, and her life in Hollywood. She has everything she thought she ever wanted, but is realizing that something's missing. And this character felt like you would maybe think a superficial Hollywood character would feel, which is why I was very surprised when it was such a heartfelt book. On her 30th birthday, Meg realizes maybe life isn't what she was expecting it to be and has a little breakdown and books a flight to Ireland, which is a place that she was supposed to go with her best friend Amy. Meg arrives in Ireland, she falls asleep and she wakes up and she's in this town and everyone's acting like they know her. And then she looks in the mirror and she realizes she looks a little bit different. Like maybe that nose job she had or the Botox she had, like that work isn't there. And so she starts to question her reality. It's basically a bit of a sliding door time travel thing that we have happening here, which was very interesting. And it's really exploring the topic of working through your grief, second chances, the what ifs of life. And it was just really heartfelt and so funny, but also really hopeful. I loved how it was more of a contemporary women's fiction book, but with a magical twist. So there was something a little bit more unique to it. The ending did make me cry, but it was in a very hopeful, happy way. And I've recommended this one to so many people. And now we have favorite novella. I don't read a lot of very short stories, but after reading this one, I have decided that if they are done well, they are definitely a favorite for me. And it was Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. I realized before I started this that I had seen the movie. It has Cillian Murphy in it. It's a very good movie if you haven't seen it yet. This was one of my last reads of the year. I didn't know much about it going in. I thought it was going to be more of a holiday feel-good book. And while I think it had a really important message, I wouldn't say that it was a Christmas carol by any means. We have Bill, who is a coal merchant, and it's set in Ireland in the 1980s in a very small rural town, one that is struggling. When Bill is doing his coal delivery, he makes a shocking discovery at a local convent, and at that time the convents had a lot of say and power in the town. A lot of people are struggling financially. So then you're following Bill as he kind of wrestles with what to do with this new information, what that would mean for his future and the future of their family. And it's a very human book. You will fall in love with Bill as you read this book. It is so well written. The prose is amazing. I mean, if you can pack such a punch in such a small book, then I think that is a sign of just being an incredible writer. This definitely touches on moral questions we ask ourselves when we're staying silent or complicit when maybe we shouldn't be. And what it was shining a light on was the Magdalene laundries, which were taking place in Ireland, maybe in Europe, definitely in Ireland during the 1900s. The last one was shut down in 1996. And it was really harmful for women and children that were forced into these. And I had no idea what those were. So I also really appreciated how this novel brought that to light for me while also telling a really beautiful story. For nonfiction, I did not read as much nonfiction last year as I had planned to. I feel like I bought a lot of nonfiction books and read parts of them, but did not finish as many as I hoped to. So for 2026, one of my goals is to read at least one nonfiction book a month. However, the ones that I did read were incredible. My best nonfiction book of 2025 was life-changing for me. It is one of my all-time favorites. It is a little bit woo-woo, so if that is not something that you are into, then it might not be for you, but if you are, then I think you will really love this one. Personal Power Through Awareness. It is all about sensing energy in yourself and in others, developing your intuition, and really empowering yourself. I love this book because it was really practical and easy to follow. It had a lot of affirmations in it and a lot of exercises that you can do, and I really related to it. So if you're someone who is more intuitive or more sensitive, then I think that you would really like this. I can flip it open to an affirmation just to give you a sense of what they are. So at the end of every chapter, it has wisdom and an exercise you can do. This one was called Wisdom for Being Your Higher Self, but then throughout the chapter, there are little affirmations or important key notes, like this one says, it is important to experience compassion rather than sympathy. Or over here it says, saying hi loving words over and over raises your mind's vibration. So as you can tell, I highlighted so much of this book. It was incredible. I could not recommend it more. I really like a lot of this author's work as well. I have not picked up anything from her that I do not enjoy. And my last category is a fun one because I love cooking. We have my favorite cookbook of the year. I order a lot of cookbooks. Sometimes there are definitely misses. This one, everything I've tried, I've loved. Anytime that I've shared this book, I've gotten the same type of feedback from other people as well. It is called What to Cook When You Don't Feel Like Cooking, and I feel like that title is what this book is all about. It's very approachable, easy meals to cook when you're like, oh my God, I don't want to make dinner again tonight. I love that it is separated into sections based on how long it will take you to make the recipe. So there's 15-minute, 30-minute, 45-minute, and an hour, I want to say. We've definitely repeated a lot of items in here. We make like the creamy kale sausage pasta at least once a week. And the author also does a great job of including swaps and tips or ways to make the meal faster throughout the book. She leaves really good notes in there. The way the recipes are written is very easy to understand too. Like over here, you have different tips and then a swap that you could make. I just think this is very easy and approachable and is a kitchen staple for us. I cannot believe that I just went through my 10 books. There were a lot on my list that were good. These were definitely the greats. I am going to try to read, I don't know, I really want to read 100 books this year, but is 50 more likely? I'm not sure. That being said, I am looking for the best book recommendations to put on my TBR for 2026. So I would love to know what your favorite reads of 2025 were. And if you're adding any of these to your TBR, thank you so much for watching today's video. I had so much fun making it. And be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's video.